Welcome everyone to Hot Topic Tuesday on League of Leaders. I'm Zach Sooty. We have Al Fragnoli and Brandon Gunn. Gentlemen, pretty exciting basketball weekend. So we're going to stick with that on our first couple topics. Philadelphia 76ers early exit from the postseason yet again. High expectations the past few years, but they just can't get over that hump. What are the issues, and what's in the future for the 76ers team? Al?
Yeah, Zach, you mentioned some great basketball this weekend. Last couple of days have been fantastic. We saw a couple game sevens that have been absolutely electric down to the wire. You got to give all the credit in the world to the Atlanta Hawks. They seem to be an up and coming young team that's got a lot of potential if they can keep that core nucleus together for a while. But going to the Philadelphia 76ers, I don't understand what happened. To me, they should have won this series. I know Atlanta looks really, really good, but I thought they were still maybe a year or two away from taking that next leap there. And the Sixers blew some games. I believe that I want to say there were two games where they had a 20-point lead. At least one for sure, more than 20 points, and they blew it and lost. You can't do that. I mean, you went to game seven, so they had that series, in my opinion. I look at a couple things. Doc Rivers, the other night after the game, he didn't sound incredibly confident in Ben Simmons. I don't know if Ben Simmons is on his way out. I have a feeling he might be, but if you think about it, you're starting one of your starters, you're starting point guards, right? He can't make a free throw. So when it comes into these tight games, and the Sixers are getting ready to go on offense, they got to take a timeout to get him out of the game so these teams don't foul him and send him to the line. And you can tell by watching the game the other night, I honestly thought there was an instance late in that fourth quarter where Ben Simmons was under the net, looked like he had an easy dunk, and the announcers even alluded to it. He passed up the dunk to pass the ball to a teammate who got fouled. I believe it was Tobias Harris. And he missed one of the free throws as well at the line too. A confident player goes up for that dunk right away. And if they get fouled, they go to the free throw line and they shoot with confidence. He clearly is lacking the confidence right now. And I think his coach is lacking the confidence. I don't think he's going to be back as a Sixer, to be honest with you. I think they look to move him. That's my thoughts on the Sixers. I thought they could have won that series easily, really believe that. And, they just let it slip away. So, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it. It's clear to see that the Ben Simmons in this postseason is not the same Ben Simmons that they've drafted and had high hopes for. I feel for the 76ers fans. I mean, they went through the process of all these losing seasons and accruing all of this talent, and it's just not paying off. And I agree with you. I think it's due to a mindset on the, maybe not so much on the team, but Ben Simmons for sure. I mean, he was timid, clear pass to the net, didn't go to the net, didn't take shots where he had open looks. And to your point, I think he played himself out of town. I think that we'll definitely see him sent to another team, maybe for some draft capital to try to get another young player in. But I think that they need to make a move to get them to that next level because, man, they should have won this series. And I don't think it was particularly close, and they came up short. What about you, Zach? What do you think?
I think the Sixers are one of the most talented teams in the NBA. I think they should have won that series. Not sure what's going on with Ben Simmons that, he's not taking a shot in the fourth quarter. It's just, I wanted to trust the process and watch the Sixers see this through because I do think they have the talent to do that. But for whatever reason, I think Ben Simmons, as you said, Brandon, played his way out of town. I don't know if he can come back from that with the city of Philadelphia, with his own locker room. I think there's just going to be some trust issues there, some confidence issues, and perhaps another location will give him a fresh start and get him back to a more confident player, but I believe his time could be up in Philly, and they're a a strong defensive free throw shooting point guard away from really, I think, being in the finals next year. I think a good transaction for the Sixers. It could work out for them in the benefit, but I don't see Ben Simmons being there next year. And I think that's what will get him over the hump, is a game management point guard who can shoot free throws and they can hold a 30-point lead. All right. Al, Brooklyn Nets eliminated in the second round of the NBA playoffs as well. Do you think it's good for basketball to not have a super team in the finals?
Yeah, absolutely. Is it good to not have a super team in the NBA Finals? Absolutely. I am so sick and tired of the predictability of the NBA and the teams. I hate that these guys come together in the offseason, they all become buddies, and then they want to play on the same team to make it easier to win a championship. Is it fun to make things easier to win? No. The joy of winning a championship is that it's not easy. It's difficult. It's a challenging process, right? So I absolutely love the fact that the Brooklyn Nets were eliminated. We'll probably hear people make excuse after excuse that they had injuries all season long. They didn't have time to mesh, blah, 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 blah. Fact of the matter, they were ousted in the second round. All right. And the Milwaukee Bucks simply wanted it more. You can see the passion that they had. PJ Tucker all over Kevin Durant. That was a gritty series. Those guys were at each other's throats the whole time. He was up in Durant's face. I absolutely love the fact that the Bucks are moving on and the Nets are done. Brandon?
Once again, I agree. I mean, I think from a parity and purity of the game standpoint, I think it is best to just have these teams home grow their talent, have these teams gel. When you can win a championship just in a free agency period after not being that great the year before, I think that really does not do anything good for the game. I do have a worry though. I've got a worry that we're going to go in without having a super team. Ratings are not going to be there. And then the NBA is going to make things easier for these super teams to form. Therefore, the ratings continue. And, there are jersey sales from people outside of those markets because they got to see, the super teams putting up massive points. That's my worry. Like I said, as a competitor myself, I think that they need to make it harder to form these super teams. And just let these teams draft their talent, develop their talent, play, whole team basketball and go from there. But I see a scenario where this whole thing could backfire on people like us that don't like to see those super teams. Zach, what are your thoughts?
So I hope they continue to have super teams, and I hope they continue to lose. That's what I want to happen, because I would love to see great teams who are working as a team win rather than big three and these super teams. I want to see the sixth man contribute, the seventh man contribute, and be players and beat these super teams. I'm not a fan of the super teams, but I also would love to see them to continue, but to continue to lose, to maybe they'll just go away on their own, and these star players will realize that the totality of a great team is with the pieces that we need to put together, and everybody has a different role. The problem with basketball is you're 1 of 5 on the court at any given time. It's 20% of your team. You're 20% of the contribution. Where baseball, you have a guy like Mike Trout, who's arguably one of the best players in Major League Baseball history, and the Angels are actually better and are winning without him, which is so strange and unique. So I think with basketball, it's just the super teams, they consistently win, but I would love for them to not be in the finals and let them continue to put together teams. But I want to see these I don't know if you want to call them small market, but I love to see the Bucks winning. Takes me back to the Glenn Robinson days when I was rooting for the Bucks and the Utah Jazz, and it just takes me back to I love seeing these teams. So not a fan of the super teams, but I'm not opposed to them continuing to be put together, and as long as they keep losing. So that's my feeling on it. All four super teams losing. So. All right, gentlemen. Moving on to the NCAA, there's a huge decision announced by the Supreme Court. Student athletes for Division One basketball and football can get paid for their likeness. There's a lot that is involved in this ruling. Probably much more that we'll find out over the next few weeks. But Al, what's your initial reaction to this?
So initial thought, I think we all knew that it was inevitable. It was going to eventually happen, right? I'm okay with it at the moment. I think there's going to be, probably a lot of backlash that happens. There's going to be a lot of stuff that comes about, in the initial process here. But listen, those two sports teams obviously generate the most money for the athletic departments at those institutions. And those student athletes bring in tons and tons of revenue. So I'm okay. I'm all right with the decision. I'm curious to see how it plays out and happens. But for the moment, initial thoughts, fine with it. Brandon?
I agree. But here's the deal for me is that, we've got NCAA football for PlayStation, Xbox, things like that. These guys, you think back to Denard Robinson playing NCAA, and here's a kid who's, at school playing football, and then seeing himself on a video game with his number, his appearance, 100%. He happened to be, a fast quarterback, coincidentally, and here they are not being able to profit off of that. And also being able to walk to downtown Ann Arbor, and there's number 16 jerseys hanging everywhere. They didn't have a name on them, but we all know whose jersey that was. So I think this is long overdue. I think, you've got these universities. I mean, the facilities at these universities are ridiculous. I mean, you've got lazy rivers in some of these training facilities. You've got just craziness. I mean, you look at Oregon and, with Phil Knight being an alum there and helping them with the uniforms. I mean, they're like a program almost with how they uniform their kids. And I think that it's overdue for these kids to be able to profit off of their likeness. But to piggyback on your thoughts, Al, they could botch this thing. And if they botch it, then it's all for naught, right? I mean, so I think that if they somehow find a way to correctly do this and have this benefit, most of the kids, I mean, and I am curious, is it just going to be the top end talent that really sees a benefit to this? Is it just going to be Trevor Lawrence and, a couple of those high end recruits, or is it going to be spread out? I'm just really curious how they deliver on this and what it looks like or what the finished product looks like. So on the surface, I'm with you. I think it's long overdue. I'm fine with it. I'm good with it. And I think, it's all going to depend on how it all plays out. What are your thoughts, Zach?
Yeah, I think it was long overdue. It was inevitable. I just don't know how they get it right. I just don't. I think there's so much room for error on this decision and how it's executed. I feel like the individuals making decisions aren't going to be closely related to the situation of the players, or close enough to know what the actual impact's going to be. And I think we talk about it when we talk about leadership and leaders making decisions. Sometimes there's unintended consequences that are just unforeseeable. And I think this is going to create a lot of them. I don't know. I don't think they're going to get it right. And maybe eventually it's just going to take time. It's going to be a trial and error. It's going to be interesting to see. Like you said, is it just going to be the few top talented individuals who really see anything from this? Or, is it going to be the long snapper whose, number and likeness is used on a video game? Where do you draw the line? It's going to be, there's just so many variables. I don't know how it works right off the bat. So I think there's going to be years of a learning curve to get this right. So We'll see. We'll see what happens. But I think it's due, and it's about time that these young men, because they're over 18, see something for their likeness being used. So, all right, guys, let's move on to MLB. Really interesting, and a lot of vocal players over this next subject. The Major League Baseball has made a rule change in the middle of the year about substances used by players, specifically spider tack and other sticky substances. For once, we're not talking steroids when we say substances. Tyler Glasnow blames his injury on the sudden stop of using any type of substance. Al, what are your thoughts about what the MLB is doing with this rule and some of the other rules, like the 7-inning double headers and starting the runner at second base in extra innings? What are your thoughts on all this?
So for this rule, I understand why Major League Baseball is attempting to implement this, right? You don't want unfair advantages for certain players if they're really putting too much on that baseball when they're throwing it, right? So I get that. However, if we see more injuries, Tyler Glasnow appears that he's going to be out for a while now, and he is blaming it on the fact that he's got to grip that ball a lot tighter, and it's putting all this pressure on his wrist and then all throughout his arm, right? So if that is the case and we see more injuries occur in the upcoming weeks and months, I think they're going to have to reevaluate this and look to potentially get rid of it. You can't have your top players injured because of a rule change, right? So their safety needs to be top of mind. So I think that's something that's going to be looked at closely in the next couple months. In regards to the innings being seven inning games for double headers, I don't really like that. I mean, I don't like it at all. What are we going back to high school baseball here? I mean, you're changing the rules. I think there was a pitcher earlier in the year that threw a perfect game in 7 innings and it didn't count because it was, well, you changed the rules. You made it a 7-inning game, so it should count. So I don't like that. And then they've also implemented, if it does go to extra innings, the 10th inning will start with a runner on second base. I don't like that at all. I mean, you're changing the entire makeup of the game. You're changing the mental strategy. You're changing the game entirely. And it seems like they're just trying to speed it up, maybe get more runs. But I'm not a fan of some of these changes. Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, I'm never a fan unless it's something egregious that was overlooked. I am never a fan of changing the rules in the middle of a year. To me, that's just something you don't do. You've got Hinch with the Tigers coming out and saying he's not even fully sure what a sticky substance or what constitute a sticky substance. And I think that this is just, another area where, they roll these rules out with grand intentions only to fail to implement it or fail for the full implementation to take place. For these guys to be abiding by these rules and yet not fully understanding them, how's that not hurt anybody? In terms of the other rule changes, I know what they're trying to do. I mean, I think that here we're seeing less runs scored. We're seeing games take a really long time. And I think that, as a society right now, most of us want instant gratification. I mean, I think that that's why football resonates with so many people, is because you have a play. The play typically lasts, I don't know, 8-10 seconds maybe, and then you line up and you do it again. So that way, there's start, beginning, end, and it all happens right there. Baseball is just, it's a different breed right now. So I think they're trying to appeal to the younger audience, and I think they're doing too much. I agree with you. I think it's just too many changes. The runner on second at the start of the 10th inning it's just odd. I knew about the rule changes, but then even when I watched it the first couple of times, it was just like, as somebody who played baseball for a long time, I couldn't wrap my head around it. And then, the 7-inning double headers, Al, you hit it spot on. I mean, if we're going to start now, not celebrating achievements or not being able to celebrate achievements. These guys are professional athletes. I mean, their achievements are what they live for, and not only that. I mean, it's just I think it just takes away from the fabric of the game. I mean, now what are we doing? So now we're going to have a 4 inning starter and then go to the bullpen. I mean, what does that look like? It's just I don't know. I'm not a fan of it. I think it's too much for one season or one off season to implement. And then in terms of halfway through the season change to the what the pitchers have to go through, at least give them an off season to work with the new rules and at least see what works for their arms, because they're going to get a lot of guys hurt if they don't do this right. Zach, what are your thoughts?
So with the spider tack and the different substances, I think taking that away in the middle of the season completely, when for decades players have been using some sort of substance as simple as rosin and sunscreen, and to just eliminate that as well, everything across the board, I think that's what really puts players at risk. I think pitchers could go away from the spider tack and probably use resin and sunscreen, and but to wipe them all cold turkey, saying no substance, that's dangerous, especially middle of the season. You said it, Brandon. Give them some time to adjust. I would like them to just be a little bit more thoughtful in making these decisions, and kind of mentioned it in the last topic. Sometimes I think those who are making decisions aren't thinking about the unintended consequences. And here we are in a perfect situation where that's happened. Injuries are starting to happen. Feel it out, ask the players, get some input to make this decision. All right, if you're allowed to use rosin and sunscreen, can we put a coloring agent? Coach all of the umpires to know this is the only approved substance. If you see anything other than this, then it's illegal, suspension, everything else. I think there were better ways to attack this. I think spider tack, if how sticky that substance is, there was an unfair advantage. There was, with the advanced metrics baseball is now using, the spin rates, it became more competitive. Guys explored more. They found substances that worked better for them. So maybe eliminate those. Let's go back to rosin and sunscreen. No harm, no foul on that stuff. It was one of the unwritten rules of baseball, just like the many others. Let's keep using it. But again, put a coloring agent, make it a consistent, make it available to the players. Just say, hey, you're allowed to use this. Don't use anything else, otherwise you'll get suspended. And train the umpires to know what it is. Just say, hey, this is what's allowed. Anything different, you have the right to throw them out of the game, 10-game suspension, whatever. So that's my feelings on the spider tack. The other rule changes, the double headers, 7 innings. It was a treat to go to a doubleheader and pay for one ticket. And teams are now like clearing the stadium, and you have to buy another ticket for a 7-inning game. Like some of these teams are even selling 2 tickets to, you have to get tickets to both games. I don't like that. Let's play 9 innings. Al, you mentioned, an earlier no hitter in a 7-inning game. If a game becomes regulation after 5 innings, if a player had a no hitter, and there's a rain out, does he get the no hitter? I mean, in the record books, it would go down as a no hitter. So give the guy the no hitter in the 7-inning game. You scheduled it that way. He did it. Give it to him. So I think the credibility there, the player earns a spot in the record books for that, and put an asterisk by it. 7-inning game due to the rules. But it should have been a 9-inning game. And I think doubleheader should be, 9 innings. I know they're long. I know it's tough on the young kids and their attention spans, but I don't want to be one of those old fuddy-duddy baseball purists, but baseball's 9-inning games, and I don't want to see that change. I think it's 9 innings is the right length for a game. Now, to that point, we talk about going into the 10th inning and having a runner start on second. I am not opposed to that. I'm not a fan of 18 and 19 inning games. So I think that does help with that. I think being a Pirate fan, and I think it was 2011 and the terrible 19th inning call at the plate against the Braves that started one of their second half declines right before they had a couple playoff runs. But, that 19 inning game, I think, destroyed them. And I'm not a fan of 18, 19 inning games. Put a runner on second. Let's make it a little bit more strategic. All right. You both couldn't score enough runs to win the game in 9. Let's throw something in there to make it a little bit more strategic on, are you going to bunt the runner over, sacrifice fly? You're going to play small ball. You're going to swing for the fences. Let's see what you can do with a guy in scoring position. So I'm not opposed to that in a regular season. I'm not a fan of 18, 19 inning games. So if we can get it to 10 to 12 inning games, that's perfectly fine with me. But you get in the playoffs, no runner on second. So that's my thoughts, Al.
Well, that was fantastic. Thanks for sharing all that information with us, Zach. That was a long-winded response, and we do appreciate that. So that wraps it up for tonight. Zach, Brandon, thanks as always. Thank you for listening and tuning in to Hot Topic Tuesday. We hope you join us this Sunday as we have another guest joining us, Jody Ostergen, the Associate Executive Director of the YMCA for Metro Detroit. So we look forward to talking with her this Sunday. We hope you tune in, and we hope you join us again next Tuesday for another edition of Hot Topic Tuesday. Thanks, everyone.